I want you to welcome storyteller, strategist, and sandwich connoisseur. This is Eric Jorgenson. And how many of you have actually read the book, The Almanack of Naval Ravikant? Anybody? Okay, a handful of you. Okay, so he's actually the author for that book. And he also wrote a book called The Anthology of Balaji, Srinivasan. I don't think you included the last name in there, did you?
No, you crushed it,
last
though.
Name. Yeah, but it's a great book as well. He runs a company now called Scribe Media, and what Scribe Media does is they are the largest professional publishing company, and they've helped publish books like David Goggins' book, David Goggins, I think a handful of other ones as well. And while he's not sharing wisdom with others, he's investing in deep tech startups, and he also has a podcast as well called Smart Friends. So Eric and I have known each other for a while, maybe, call it 7, 8 years, something like that. Back when he used to work at a company called Zarly, maybe 10 years ago, something like that.
It's been a while, yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while. But Eric's doing a lot of really cool stuff, and so without further ado, everyone please give Eric a hand and welcome him to the stage.
Thank you. Keep it going for Nathan Barry. I was not preparing for this. I was in the back like scribbling notes. Every time I hear him talk, I'm like, oh my God, I've got so much work to do. I must start thinking of my entire life in flywheels. I've been an OG Nathan Barry fan, and since he was like selling books was like his first online product, like 10 or 15 years ago now. And it's an honor to be here hanging out with you guys this week and talking about the subtle power of books. I know we've spent a lot of time with AI, with digital, with super quant stuff, and I get to kind of take a different tact and talk about this timeless, centuries-old medium that I think there are a ton of opportunities in that a lot of people are still overlooking. So I want to start with a question, which is, what book has changed your life? This is mine. I picked this book up off my dad's bookshelf when I was 21 years old, and it shaped everything about my life. It was the basis of friendships. It was the basis of the next 10 years of my reading, my investment taste, how I think about my business, and really my whole life. I got to meet the author of this book. He's an incredible operator and CEO named Peter Kaufman, who's very under the radar. He donates all the profits of this book from this book to charity. But I got to really thank him for sort of laying this foundation for me. And the biggest thing that this book did was really inspire me to write my first book, The Almanack of Naval Ravikant. I see Naval as being in the sort of lineage of Charlie Munger and Ben Franklin as being like a really incredible thinker that you can look up to in a lot of different ways across a lot of different domains. And writing this book, the process of writing this book changed my life. The process of publishing it changed my life. And it's gone on to sell 1.5 million copies, be translated into 40 languages. And I really got to feel the sort of same gratitude that I felt for Peter now as an author when I get DMs and emails and messages from people who feel like their lives have been changed by a book that I wrote. I got addicted to writing books. I immediately started my second. I'm working on my third. And writing this book, this opportunity, led directly to me becoming CEO of Scribe Media, which is this professional publishing company. And now I get to work with a lot of entrepreneurs, executives, and coaches and consultants and speakers about crafting their book and publishing it on their own terms, which is an incredibly fun job to have for a book and business nerd like me. Our mission at that company is to stop wasting the world's wisdom. A lot of people here knew or know Tucker Max. This is his mission. A lot of these are his ideas. And this is really like the mantle that I inherited from the company that he started. I think if there's one thread in my career, it is just recognizing great ideas when I see them. And I think Tucker and Zach founding Scribe 10 years ago was prescient in this industry, and they have done a lot to sort of advance the thinking in the publishing world from this staid world of traditional publishing into something that's much more adaptable, much more fluid, and really puts authors at the center and recognizes the control and the influence and the central role that they should have in the book and how it's distributed and everything else. So I'm going to talk a little bit about who should write a book and when. I'm going to talk about how to use your book to build your business. And I'll hit these kind of different things harder based on how many people in this room have already published a book and has it out currently? Okay, like a medium handful. Okay. I think everyone in this room has had a hero's journey. You don't get here by accident. You don't get here by being, meek or thinking small or being casual. Like, this is a room of intentional people who have worked hard to be here. You've all had a hero's journey. You have hard-won wisdom that got you here, and you have something to share. And I'm sure you've all had the feeling of sitting across the table from somebody and having a one-on-one conversation that changed that person's life. Consulting them, coaching them, and the gratitude that you feel there. And you can scale that impact by writing a book. A lot of people, I've heard this talked about, oh yeah, I should write a book. I hear a book is a business card. This is bullshit, and it's stupid bullshit, and it's a great place to start if you want to write a very bad book. This is not, you can spot these from a mile away, you can smell them, and it's not good. The reason is because like a brain dead banana can get a business card. They're like 4 cents, very cheap, very easy, not a lot of copy, not a tough format. But writing a great book is like getting a PhD or winning a gold medal. It's very hard to do. It takes intention, it takes effort, it takes usually a team, and it's a project that takes place over years, and only exceptional people can do it. That's why it's a signal. That's why it matters. And that is why it still becomes this thing that people aspire to. They don't aspire to write a shitty book. They aspire to write a great book that actually impacts people. And a book specifically, I promise you these slides look way better when I handed them to somebody. There's beautiful scripts, there's formatting. My wife's a designer, she'd be extremely upset right now. It's a good thing she's not here. Books specifically are this high effort, long-term project. They are a long-term investment, not just in creating it, but also in how it stays around. I love podcasting, I love Twitter, I love blogging, but this sort of through the eyes of something that hasn't been around that long, I don't know what's gonna happen 5 years after you stop posting, 10 years after you stop posting. Like, what happens to your Twitter account when you die? I don't know, but I know that I'm gonna leave a bookshelf full of written books, and I find that immensely satisfying. And I know that we're still reading books from 2,000 years ago, and that's incredible and mind-blowing and beautiful to me. So it's a high credibility medium because it's hard, because traditionally it's been gate-kept. There's this kind of prestige arbitrage that exists, which you would think shouldn't exist anymore because it's been a little while since it's been a truly gate-kept medium, but that's still very much there, and the paths that books travel in our world and the signal that they hold still very meaningful. It's also an important thing that people pay for these books. It's not ad-supported, it's not zero marginal cost. People pay, $5, $10, $20, which is not a lot, but it is a signal of intent that they are excited to engage with you, they're excited to learn what you have to say, and they're going to make the effort to learn and engage with what you put on those pages. So it is the answer to the sort of capitalist Zen koan, which is like, how do you sell without selling? It's very similar to what Nathan said, and it's very similar to what Sean said yesterday. How do you teach, you become an expert through the act of teaching. His was way tighter. He had it on a slide. But it echoes that sort of message has rhymed and come up a couple different times through different presentations over the course of the week. And it's a place where you can get authority sort of projected onto you rather than chasing people around, trying to tell them how much you know and how great your product is. You can when you write a book, when you really teach, when you give away what you know, as Nathan says again, teach everything you know, and put that in a book, people will elevate the book, and in doing so, they will elevate you in a way where you are not having to try to shine a light on yourself. And it's a very different, it's an indirect approach that is often, in particular for high trust sales or high status products, legal, like consulting, coaching, law, things like that, business sales. These are incredibly, it's a very small inversion that's incredibly powerful. So if you take a photo of any, there's like 2 slides that are photo worthy. I think this is one of them. This is the 1 slide version of like a 1-hour exercise that we put authors through. I spend a lot of time fielding the question, how do I know if I should write a book? And if so, what book should I write? This, in a very simple form, is the exercise that we do to answer this question. So you want to have a very specific targeted primary audience. You want to have a really clear idea of what you're going to teach them, the transformation that you're going to take them through. And you want to have a goal, an objective that is outside of, or that is for an objective for the reader and an objective for you. Writing a book is hard. It's a big investment. It's a long-term thing. You need to have a selfish reason to do it. You also need to have a generous reason to do it. Because if you don't go into it with that, if you come into it with, I'm going to write a book that's going to be great for me, it's going to vindicate me, it's going to prove to my ex-wife that I was right all along. It's going to make my dad proud of me. Like, it will do none of those things, and you will be very disappointed. So think about what you are going to give to the reader and what you are going to get for the work and the effort that you're putting in. And then make sure that the book that you've written down and framed there is actually a book that you want to write and be associated with. A lot of times you have good book ideas, or just the dominoes don't all line up. The stars don't align. And because this is a long-term, high-investment project, I've seen authors underthink this particular work. And even though they publish the whole book, they're disappointed with the results because it didn't line up all the way through a long-term vision, and they haven't thought through the years of work that are going to come after the writing and the publishing of the book to get the juice out of the fruit that they have so lovingly grown. So since we've got a lot of people here who've already written a book, I'm going to kind of go deeper into some of these stories here about how to use your book to serve your goals in some surprising ways. A book is a multi-purpose marketing tool with the unique ability to create, is the underlined word, create attention. It can build your brand and your career at the same time. And this goes back to, like, you don't want to be walking around shouting through a megaphone. You just want to taint the water supply. You want to let other people talk about you and shine the light back on you, and a book is an exceptional way to do that. Michael Mogul is a great example of this. He wrote a book called The Game-Changing Attorney, and goes to all kinds of conferences. It was a reasonable investment of time and effort. He helps law firms market themselves, in particular through video. He's given away a lot of books, goes to conferences, gives them away, puts them on a table, gives a talk, meets people, and they hire him to help market their law firm. And millions, that's a very old number, 5 million. I bet it's 10 plus now. And this is a playbook that very much works for this kind of sale, for agencies, coaches, consultants, speakers, marketers. It gives you access to podcasts, newsletters. It gets you invited to speak at conferences. Example. Not being the only example, I went through all the other speakers. Of the 18 speakers we've got on the slate today, 55%, more than half, have a book that's already out. I think not a coincidence. If you give away your book for free, which I have done with my books, I've given away probably 4 or 5 million copies of the digital versions and still sold 1.5 million copies. So I think it just helps with that reach. It comes up now in a bunch of interactions with ChatGPT and LLMs. It helps with SEO. I can send people very specific chapters because my book is published all in, like, blog post format. And so when you have a really instructional book too, or a very tactical one, it really helps in the sales process. Sometimes you can send books, send chapters, links to chapters very specifically, and then some people will go on to the next chapter, go on to the next chapter, subscribe to your newsletter. It's like kind of part of that engagement, education, training flywheel that you can create. We heard yesterday about how YouTube is an underrated search engine. Amazon, also an incredibly underrated search engine. Part of the reason is anybody can get a SERP up, get a page, get a web page, free, Squarespace, whatever. And the battle for SEO results on page one, extremely competitive. The battle for Amazon search results, a lot less competitive, actually, because the bar for entry is to have written a whole book. It's a lot harder to get a book on Amazon published with reviews, credibility, good design, and when operators, readers, real people go to solve a problem, a lot of times they go search on Amazon and look for a book that can teach them how to solve their problem. And sometimes they buy the book, sometimes they hire the person who wrote the book. I've heard so many stories of this, whether it's SaaS or legal services. There are a lot of people for whom Amazon search book reading is like part of their discovery and conversion funnel. And it's pretty incredible. The last one is just a very broad, like, increase your luck surface area. Unexplained good things can happen a lot of times when you just have your information out in the world. And if people have spent 5 or 10 hours reading your book, if they're even sitting on your shelf for a very long time, that information is just sort of perennial awareness is always there for them. And they can sort of signpost you in the right direction. We all know how powerful those networks can be. So I like to say you're building your lighthouse. It's a beacon to attract your people. It's a fun way to kind of visualize it. And a few examples from different companies coming your way. I really like this one because this is playing the meta game. It's not, I wrote a book about my company so you can read about it. NVIDIA, incredible success story, but like this is 20 years ago. Jensen Huang is an incredible operator because he pays attention to what's happening at the fringes of his companies, at the frontiers. And he saw academics starting to adapt his products, hack them basically, in order to use them for some of the scientific research they were doing. And to maximize this, he changed the product, wrote a programming language called CUDA, and in order to get broad adoption of this, they wrote a textbook and they sent a guy around to speak at all the schools and train the entire sort of upcoming generation of scientists on their programming languages, which interacts with their hardware. And they just grabbed this whole industry by writing a book. And a lot of times when you see a movement happen, when you dig and dig and dig, you'll see that there was a book that was sort of the inflection point that transitioned this thing that becomes cultural knowledge. The obvious example is religions, but it happens all the time at different people's inflection points in their career. Obviously, you can use your book to win more deals. David Craig is an attorney in the Midwest with quite a successful law firm. When he has sort of potential clients approach him when they're evaluating multiple attorneys, he same day drop ships them a copy that arrives at their house. The subject of the book is how to evaluate attorneys and how to decide who to hire to help you with this most important case. He gives the customer the test that all the lawyers are going to take, but he's the one who wrote the test. So do you think he knows how to answer the questions that they're about to ask him? And do you think when they hire him, he knows that they are extremely confident in the decision they made? They trust him. They know why they hired him. They know what his process is going to be like. They know how he thinks about this. It is just a different level of investment that customers come to you with when they already have done all of the training. It's very difficult to spend 10 hours with every potential client on a one-on-one basis. You can't pay your sales development representatives or have the time as a founder to do that. But if you write a great book and you entice people to read it at the right time, you can get that level of depth and trust and engagement with incoming clients. So that's how to convert a lead. David's a great example there. Dr. Joseph Field is a dentist in the Bay Area, just published a book with us recently. Creating a confident smile. Everyone here has beautiful teeth and an incredibly good-looking, wonderful set of people. For people for whom there are a lot of people for whom their smile is the most guilt-inducing or shame-inducing, or they're just so self-aware of it. If they're not confident in it, it consumes them. And the solutions that can get offered by somebody like Dr. Joseph Field are incredible. And so there are people searching for this kind of thing. It seems niche, but there are people searching for the solutions like this all the time. And so he gives all of his clients a copy of that book with a golden ticket inside. Everyone who comes through the office. And he's like, it's a give 500, get 500 if you refer somebody. And so these books are making the rounds through his hyper-local thing. He's not selling a ton of copies, but he is building an incredible business, and he's helping a lot of people understand what their options are for what is the source of the single most negative feelings in their life. It's a great story, and he's a great operator there. We've heard a few times, Nathan talked about it a little bit. About creating multiple thought leaders. I call this the Geico approach. There's no reason your company can only have one spokesperson. I've seen quite a few organizations where multiple different leaders in the company are writing books targeting either different audiences, different stakeholders around the company. So it's a way to create multiple thought leaders out of your team or your ecosystem. We see a lot of people writing books to transition careers or career stages. Two different examples here. Tim Ferriss was 29 when he published The 4-Hour Workweek. He built a solid company, but was largely unknown. He's a blogger, and that book became the foundation of all of his other books, his podcast, his investments in Twitter, Uber, Shopify, all of those things. It became the foundation for him. I think for me, in retrospect, the Almanack of Naval will be a foundational book. I published that when I was 30. It changed the trajectory and the opportunity set that I had and the people that I was working with, and became that sort of credential for me of oh, that person can do a thing. I'll hang out with them. Principles, Ray Dalio went through a very intentional transition as he left an operating role in Bridgewater and just became, I think he calls it a tribal elder. He's like, this is my third chapter is giving and sharing and teaching. And so he's investing a lot in writing books, building apps, teaching everything he knows. And I see people go through these transitions all the time, whether it's, I'm selling my business, I want to become a coach. I'm selling my business, I just want to operate or invest or advise, and help other operators. Ready to like sort of partially retire and give back. So books can be great ways to sort of transition through those things. The last one here is the community and legacy and family piece. If you haven't read Made in America, it's an incredible book. Sam Walton is one of the greatest. I think he belongs on kind of the top 10 list of entrepreneurs. Really incredible operator. And he dictated this book on his deathbed, riddled with cancer, months to live, one of the richest people alive at the time. And he makes the effort to give back to the next generation of entrepreneurs. He felt it was his obligation to teach what he knew. And I think that this is a really good way to do it. It's a timeless way to do it. It's an enduring way to do it. And I think there's a lot of people, I know everybody here really works hard, works their ass off, risks everything to give their family a financial legacy. And I think we tend to overlook the intellectual legacy, the knowledge assets. I read a great line that experience isn't inheritable and it isn't even contagious. Just because you've gone through the hero's journey, you've taken the scars, you've learned the lessons, and you leave the money, doesn't mean your kids will learn those lessons unless you really intentionally teach them and bring them along and leave artifacts for them to follow along your path. I know this personally. It's part of why I find books so satisfying. Like my father got to build a business with my grandfather. They worked down the hall from each other for decades. And I never got that chance. My dad, I adored him, admired him very much, passed away, and there's no object I wish existed more than a book written by my dad. It's part of what kind of drives me to keep creating these things. So if you remember one thing from me, it is don't die with your best work in your head. And Twitter only kind of counts. This is a function as old as priests and prostitutes. Like busy, powerful, smart, accomplished people working with writers to record their thoughts and share what they know. This is humanity's great conversation from Plato to Popper and everybody in between. It's all happened in books. Please do the work to not die with your best work in your head. I don't care if your target audience is, your family or trying to sell 1 million copies like Sahil Bloom. Both are equally good goals. I've talked to a few people today who are already sold on writing a book, and they just want to know what their options are, how to get a book written. So I'll go through this relatively quickly. The book requires 3 different marathons. I won't talk too much about the second 2. We need to write a manuscript. We need to take it from manuscript, which is like Word document, to published book, final files. And then we need to put that book to work and get juice from that fruit. So 2 and 3, I'm happy to talk with you personally about. They are a little more nuanced and a little more kind of individual decisions to make about the trade-offs. But we've got a slide about the first one. If you haven't written your book already, my general rule of thumb is you're probably not going to. Not without a major life change, not without a change in schedule. If you don't already have a writing habit, they're very hard to build. Everyone here is busy. You got organizations to run. If you don't very intentionally renovate your schedule to make space for writing, you probably won't write it on your own. That's okay. We've got professional guidance coaches who can sort of walk you through and edit as you go and give you the structure and the positioning and the frame so that you know as you're writing that you're not wasting your time wandering through the forest. You know that when you're done with putting in the hours, you're going to have a beautiful, finished, written book. The third and very popular option is someone else writes it for you. You'd be shocked at how many, almost all of the, in particular, nonfiction books are written with the help of a writer, a scribe, a ghostwriter, whatever you want to call it. And those engagements vary. You can find people that do it for $10,000. I've heard as high as $5 million. Name brand authors are going to ghostwrite for like $500,000 to $1 million if they've got like previous high-end bestsellers. But you can get a really, really great writer for a lot less than that. And it's just really a function of reps and effort to turn it into something great. Our book, The Scribe Method, there's a bunch of them on the table out there. Please take a copy with you. I don't know how I'm going to fly home if you leave 50 there. You can download a free Kindle copy too. We practice what we preach, so this is available on our website on a chapter-by-chapter basis. You can find it on Audible if you're an Audible person. Everything we know about writing and publishing books is in that book. It's an incredible resource. Even if you've already written your book, you will find ways to use your book by just skimming through it. Flip to the chapters that serve you. There's a couple great chapters in the back. Those were written by Tucker and Zach, the founders of Scribe, and have been through thousands of authors' lessons are in that book. So to sort of sum up what I think is the subtle power of books, this is a very respected medium. There's a prestige arbitrage here that I welcome you to take advantage of. Nathan and I were talking to one of your next speakers, Greg, for like 10 minutes about our books and why books are important and what it can do. And he was like, I don't think I'm going to write a book. I'm pretty good at the end. Like 10 minutes later, he comes up and he's like, shit, I think I need to write a book. So it does sort of stick with you, and it is a really fun thing. Like I cannot tell you enough. I've built companies, I've invested, I've done real estate. Like the work that I find most satisfying spiritually, like in my bones, is writing books. And I feel like I'm just like etching a part of myself into eternity when I produce a book in a way that nothing else has ever made me feel. Books are the headwaters of culture, and you know that your book will outlive you. So I love this medium. It's really fun to work with people on doing this. So I'll return to the question of what book changed your life. Think about it, appreciate that book, and think about whether or not you could write that book. If you've changed one person's life, if you package this the right way, who else could you reach, and how far could that impact go? We got a handful of questions. I was wildly optimistic about the timing of this entire event when I put the time on there. But we have a break coming up now-ish, I believe. And I'm very happy to talk to you about your book ideas. Send me a text, shoot me an email. I'm easy to get a hold of. Everybody that I met here has been wonderful. So I'm excited to continue the conversation and hopefully help you either get more out of the books you've already written or potentially capture your knowledge in one of these beautiful artifacts. Thank you.